All right, everybody, welcome back to the BeatinTheBookie show. We just coming off the greatest college football weekend that was hyped up. It was so crazy. Everyone was going nuts about it. And it turned out to be, I don't want to say lackluster, but it was an interesting weekend to say the less. But let's go ahead and jump into this week. We've got some pretty good matchups, both college and NFL. Poised to be another good weekend. So let's dive right in. Friday night, little ranked matchup to start the week. Utah coming in at number 10. They're going up to Oregon State. It's number 19, and the line's Oregon State -3.
Yeah, it's this past college weekend was supposed to be one of the all-timers, and I thought it was kind of a dud, kind of a letdown. Everyone was looking forward to the games, and the Oregon-Colorado game was over in the first quarter, essentially. So
the first 5 minutes.
The FSU-Clemson game was good. The Notre Dame game, Ohio State was very good. Just a defensive battle.
Yep.
But yeah, it was the Michigan. The Penn State Iowa game was just a disgusting watch, right?
They're terrible.
Iowa should not be on primetime TV at this point anymore. Program is just terrible. 79 yards of total offense. You can't get any worse than that. So yeah, I was looking forward to a huge week last week. It was a little lackluster, a little boring, but this week we have a good game on Friday or Thursday, like you said, with the Friday, Utah at Oregon State. And I think, I like Utah, but I think that they're in some trouble right here because Cam Rising, he's been questionable to play ever since the first game. He hasn't played at all. So something is wrong there, right? This is like the fourth or
what's
fifth
going
game.
on? What's going on there? There's no clear-cut answer.
Fourth or fifth game for some teams, and his injury has kind of been like a little, they're keeping it under the radar, right? So what's really wrong with him, right? So we don't know, but I can tell you what this backup kid that they had play, this backup kid they had, Nate Johnson, was not very good. They beat UCLA 14-7. Their offense had 100 and something total yards. They're just winning with their defense right now, right? And that's
right.
That's something that's a lot easier to do in the NFL because people score less points. But in college, when you come up against an explosive offense like Oregon State, right, who just scored 35 points, they lost to Washington State 38-35. Very good game. They came back.
They were down way early.
3 touchdowns going to the fourth quarter. They came back to tie it. So they have an explosive offense led by the former Clemson QB. I'm not even going to say his name because
DJ Uiagalelei. Clearly, he was not the problem. Clearly, he was not the problem up in Clemson. He's been playing lights out since he got to OSU.
He has been, but to Dabo's credit, I will say he did play poorly at Clemson. But sometimes quarterbacks, it takes a couple of years for them to get into a system, right?
Right.
Everyone's not going to be Trevor Lawrence, right, or Deshaun Watson. So
they had a back-to-back. They got pretty lucky there.
They did, but I think Utah. I think if Cam Rising doesn't play this game, I think Utah probably loses because Oregon State's going to score points, and no matter how good the Utah defense is, they're playing on the road here, and their offense is just going to have to score, right? You're going to have to start scoring points at some point in the season to win games. So,
and it's a miracle that they've made it this far with scoring as little as they have. Very low scoring game against Florida, low scoring against Baylor, and then they just haven't looked great.
They haven't. So, this week maybe we'll see some progression from the quarterback position, but the kid was so bad last week that I'm just not really sure. He was so bad that he took to Twitter and he actually apologized to the fans for that their offense was so bad and that their defense basically carried the team. He said he's going to play better. So, when you do that, you know that you're not playing very well. So,
right.
I would definitely favor Oregon State, at this point. If Rising doesn't play. If Rising plays, it's a completely different situation. Yeah, but if he doesn't play, I'd definitely lean for Oregon State.
Yep, I'm right there with you, man. Oregon State looks good. DJU, he looks good. Like you said, if Rising's not there, I don't see how Utah really makes this competitive. But we'll see on Friday night. We get a little early start to the weekend. Moving on to Saturday, though. Number 6, Penn State going up to Northwestern. The line's Penn State minus 27. I mean, Penn State, I feel like they've been getting disrespected almost when it comes to Vegas. I mean, their point total was 26.5 last week. I think it was 28.5 the previous week. And they're playing these teams, Illinois and whoever they played this past week, Iowa, that are not very good at all. And they're not being projected to win by that much. What do you think about this week?
But Penn State, in all fairness, has not been playing great offense. Like the last 2 games, they've really struggled offensively. Allaire, he's supposed to be a great quarterback, but he looks very mediocre to me. I mean, considering they haven't played very good teams so far. And this week they're not playing, they're playing another very poor team. But, Northwestern, I'll give them credit. Northwestern came back down. They were down 3 touchdowns to Minnesota in the fourth quarter, and they came back to win that game in overtime. So Northwestern,
I was not expecting.
No, they were like plus 2,000 on the money line headed to the fourth quarter. But this is a game where it's at Northwestern, and I think maybe Northwestern, maybe they found something coming back from down 3 touchdowns to beat Minnesota. Maybe they found something there, and they keep that momentum going into the game, right? I don't see like what incentive does Penn State have to cover a 4 touchdown spread in this game, right? Like it's
not much.
It's hard to cover 4 touchdowns on the road, right? I mean, there will be a lot of Penn State fans there, sure, but it's not going to be State College. So I think Penn State has very little incentive to cover a 4 touchdown spread at Northwestern. I think Northwestern found something offensively against Minnesota, so
they've got every reason to try to cover.
I would definitely lean to Northwestern plus 4 touchdowns in this spot. If it got to 28, I would definitely lean to Northwestern. But, we'll have to see where the line takes us.
We'll see.
Obviously, it's still early.
Still early on in the week. Moving on, number 8 USC taking a trip over to Boulder. I mean, the Buffs, they got dismantled this past week. USC only 21.5 point favorites. Thoughts?
Well, I think the line had got up to like 25 during the game, during the Oregon game. So I'm not really surprised with the line. I think, USC, like their offense is so good, but the problem is like their defense is so bad, right? Like Oregon has a great offense, but Oregon has a very good defense also, right? Oregon's had a good defense for a few years, right? Like they play very tough ever since Mario Cristobal was their coach, right? They have a lot of great defenders. I mean, they've got guys going in the first 5 picks of the NFL draft every year on defense, right? It seems like. So Oregon's defense is very tough. USC, on the other hand, complete opposite, right?
Not a very good defense.
I mean, Arizona State, who, USC was a 34-point favorite to Arizona State at Arizona State this past weekend. They won by 14, but Arizona State was moving it up and down the field, and Arizona State has a very, very bad offense. Drew Pine was their quarterback, the former Notre Dame transfer. Very, very poor quarterback, but they were just driving it up and down the field on USC. USC was almost playing like that, like we'll just let them score because then we're going to get the ball back and score again, right? It's just going up and down the field, right, both teams. So everyone's probably looking at this game saying, you know what, I just watched Colorado get, their doors blown off last week, and I'm definitely going to take USC, right? But, in this spot, I think if that line got to like 23, 24, I would definitely take Colorado because it's at Colorado. So USC, they're going to have to deal with a little bit of altitude.
Right.
They're going to get a little tired, a little quicker up there. And like I said, I just don't think their defense is USC's defense is what's going to hold them back from playing in the playoff this year because their defense is just terrible. Like they did not get any better.
They're not beating Oregon with this defense performance that they've got right now.
They're not. And I think Colorado can draw up some stuff, draw up some plays and, score offensively. So if Colorado can get at least, 28 points in this spot, I think they'll cover, but a better play might be the game over because there's zero defense on both teams this game. So.
Right. Hey, it's going to be a fun one to watch for sure. Number 1, Georgia heading over to Auburn. The line's Georgia minus 14.5. I mean, neither of these teams have really played up to their full potential so far this year, especially Georgia. I'm not sure what Auburn's full potential is. First-year head coach Hugh Freeze, obviously first-year head coach at Auburn. But they just do not look that great. Auburn doesn't.
They don't.
So I
They
mean,
don't.
the game against Texas A&M was one of the sloppiest games that I've watched in a long time. That was this past weekend. And I mean, I just don't. I mean, 14.5. I feel like if Georgia gets it together at all, I mean, they're smoking them.
Yeah, I mean, and Auburn was facing Texas A&M backup quarterback that game because the starter got injured, right? So Georgia, they're 0-4 on the year against the spread. You got to figure, they're the worst.
40, and it's been 40 plus points every week.
Exactly. So they've been the worst team against the spread in the country right now, just because the spreads have been 45 points, right, and high stuff like that.
50 versus UT Martin.
Auburn cannot move the ball, right? Auburn struggles to move the ball, and they're going to play that Georgia defense right now. And the Georgia defense, like I said, they returned more production than last year, and they've been good. I mean, this last game they had, you can see that they took their foot off the gas, right? Like defensively, you're going to have those at some point in those walkover games. So I don't think that's anything to worry about for Georgia. If this line got to 14, I would definitely take Georgia. 14.5. I'm not sure. I definitely think it'll be a low scoring game. So I don't know what the over under is at this point, but I would definitely lean the under because, with Hugh Freeze, you'd think Auburn would be able to score, but they just have not been able to get going, right?
They barely scored against Cal. I just can't see them moving the ball against Georgia.
They did, and that was one of the worst games I've seen in a while. Also, so
terrible. Hey, back-to-back weeks.
Back-to-back weeks, and I don't see they couldn't move the ball against Texas A&M, a team that the Hurricanes just moved the ball up and down the field on. So this Auburn offense is not very good, and I think Georgia shuts them down, and Georgia probably gets their first cover of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I like that 14.5 a lot. Moving on, number 24 Kansas heading to Austin for number 3 Texas. Texas minus 17. Kansas has looked pretty good this year. They're going to give up a lot of points. I kind of look a little bit about that Texas team total over, but Kansas they're 4-0. Texas 4-0. Kind of a little showdown down there in Austin. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely would lean towards Kansas, right? Because Kansas has got a great coach, Lance Leipold. Jalen Daniels, quarterback, he's a baller. Devin Neal, running back, he's a baller. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's very good. I mean, Kansas is a very good team, and I think this line is like disrespectful for Kansas, like 17 points. I mean, I haven't really, Texas did beat Alabama, right? But we've seen Alabama. It's not the Alabama, of usual, right? They don't really have a quarterback, and Alabama took the lead, to start the fourth quarter in that game. Right. So, I just think like that's a lot of points to cover, right? And you're playing a team with a very good offense in Kansas. There's so many scenarios where Kansas could cover. Say Texas is up 20 points with 4 minutes left. They're playing prevent D. Kansas goes right down and scores a touchdown. So there's just so many scenarios right here where I think Kansas covers. I would definitely take Kansas plus the 17.
Yeah,
we've seen Ewers struggle to get started in games, right? So we've seen the Texas offense struggle to get started. So I definitely would take Kansas plus the points here. Maybe even the Kansas team total. I mean, I have to see what that is, but I'm definitely leaning towards Kansas.
Moving on, number 13 LSU heading to Oxford for number 20 Ole Miss. Lines LSU minus 3. I mean, you got to put all your money on LSU minus 3. After the performance we saw from Ole Miss this past weekend, I mean, yeah, they've been putting up 50 a game until then, but they've been playing cupcakes, and they looked horrible against a real defense, and LSU is going to score 40. So I don't know where you lean here, but LSU is looking very juicy at minus 3.
Yeah, I think everyone will probably be on LSU. That's what would trouble me a little bit. And LSU, they almost lost to an Arkansas team that lost at home to BYU, right? They just I've seen
Right.
people calling for Brian Kelly, like, regime change already at LSU. So I'm just like, this is a game that's a complete toss up to me. Like, I wouldn't be so surprised if Ole Miss won, to be honest. I would actually probably go to this game if I wasn't going to New York next week. So,
Hey, come to the game. We'll be there.
I know, I would not be surprised if Ole Miss won, because, I see Lane Kiffin's already tweeting, like, fill the stadium up, coming off that stinker against Alabama. I think Lane Kiffin, I think Alabama, I think Ole Miss is going to have some tricks up their sleeve this game. I think you're going to see a few trick plays, and LSU, I don't think they're a very tough team, right? Like,
Right.
we saw them get hit in the mouth against, Florida State, and they completely folded. So I think Ole Miss, they can definitely stay with them. If they can stay with LSU long enough to frustrate them, I think Ole Miss can definitely win the game, but it's pretty evenly matched game if you ask me.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one, and the line reflects that evenly matched. So we'll see. It's gonna be a good one to be at for sure. Moving on, Notre Dame, number 11, heading over to Duke, number 17. Notre Dame minus 5.5. I don't know. Notre Dame looked pretty good. Ohio State really is the one that the takeaway from that game is how good Ohio State is. They hadn't really played anybody yet this year, but Notre Dame, I don't know. This Duke team, they've looked great all year. They beat Clemson. Their offense is prolific, I would say. They're scoring 30 a game. I look for this game to be pretty good, man.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people are just going to see like the name Duke and they're just going to take Notre Dame automatically. But Duke has been a total machine this year. They have a great coach, great quarterback play, great offense, and their defense has been playing very good. We saw them beat the crap out of Clemson, start the year.
Yep.
They just destroyed UConn. I hit that team total in like the early third quarter. So Duke's been rolling, and it's at Duke. I'm sure it'll be mostly Notre Dame fans. Duke will get a good crowd like they did against Clemson, but you'll have a lot of Notre Dame fans there. And it's just all about, like, will Notre Dame be hungover from the Ohio State loss? If Notre Dame runs the table and goes 11-1, they'll still make the college playoff, right? Because that's just because they're Notre Dame, right? And
right.
They did lose a close game to Ohio State, but I haven't been so impressed with Ohio State, this year. I thought, both teams played very average that game. They played great defense, but the quarterback play left, a lot to be desired. Like Hartman.
Yeah, he didn't perform like I thought he would.
He didn't. They made some stupid mistakes in that game. Like, he ran out of bounds on the 4th and 1 where he could have looked like he could have dove and picked it up. It cost his team points. So, I would definitely lean towards Duke at home with the points. I think
5.5 is kind of a lot.
I think that's kind of disrespectful to Duke, to be honest. It's like people are just, basing that line off like Duke's history, right? So,
well, I think Duke's also getting disrespected because of Clemson. Clemson's so bad that win doesn't really mean very much anymore, sadly, for Duke.
And we saw Clemson almost just beat it. They should have beat Florida State. So
they should have.
I think it makes Duke's win look a little better. And Duke's played tough teams. They had Clemson come there, right? So they're ready, right? They've seen teams that are just as fast as Notre Dame. So I think Duke will be ready, and I would definitely lean, for Duke.
It's going to be a good game to watch that evening. Moving on, number 12, Alabama, heading to Starkville, going against Mississippi State. Lines Alabama minus 14.5. What Alabama are we going to get? It just remains to be seen. I don't know if the Mississippi State defense can necessarily hold up to the Tide offense, but who knows? It just depends on which Alabama Crimson Tide offense that we get this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't like the 14.5, right? I don't like that, but I'd probably stay away from this game. And Mississippi State, I think they're just completely trash, garbage, whatever you want to say.
Music to my ears.
Just not really, they're just not really. This coaching is just terrible. The defensive coordinator who took over for Leach, just
Zach Arnett, baby.
Not very good, right? And it's
not very personable either.
Mike Leach built them up for a few years, and just to have them, just destroy it in 1 year. So Mississippi State, I definitely wouldn't play them. I could see that. I could see Bama just rolling them. But it's tough because, like you said, you never know like which Bama's going to show up for what half, right? Like so.
Now, something I could throw in there: the Bama defense has shown up every game.
Yeah, they have.
So I mean, 14.5. You're basically just gambling on if the offense is showing up because the defense is going to be there.
And
I like the 14.5.
It takes a lot to slow Ole Miss offense down, also. So, I definitely like. I mean, I would definitely lean towards Bama here. I definitely wouldn't play Mississippi State, right? Because I just think they're a dead program. So yeah, I would definitely, if I had to play it, I would go with Alabama.
I'm right there with you, man. Let's move on to the NFL, dude. We got a couple of pretty decent NFL games. I mean, this past week was nuts. The Dolphins are just unbelievable. Nice hat, by the way.
They are.
So Dolphins are heading up to Buffalo to face the Bills. Bills -2.5. What do you think?
The Dolphins, I mean, we've been playing well. Not we, but they've been playing well. Obviously, they have the second most points in NFL history through 3 games. 70 points against Denver. They could have scored more. They should have because everyone's complaining about it anyways. But I just don't see how you cover Tyreek. You can't. Jalen Waddle did not even play, right? So it's hard to see how teams. How do you cover Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill? You can't cover Tyreek Hill. No. Raheem Mostert. I mean, these guys all run.
And he's in motion every play. It's like he's unstoppable.
Devin Achane from Texas A&M. I mean, this 4 touchdowns last week, 203 yards rushing as a rookie. Didn't even start the game. So this Dolphins team, they have so many playmakers. And this is a team that they went to Buffalo in the playoffs in January with Skylar Thompson.
Yeah.
And they almost beat Buffalo, right? I think they had a lead in the 4th quarter.
It was a great game. I remember that.
So it's hard to, I'm definitely like, I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan. So, I mean, the Bills are a tough team. But I think the Dolphins are just better right now. I think Tua's playing better than Josh Allen. Tua's not going to take those crazy chances Josh Allen takes, make a risky throw here or there. Tua's a lot safer with the ball. And, I think the Dolphins, they could easily win this game, but a better play for me in this game would be like the over. I think it's like 53. So
I like that a lot.
I would definitely take the over in this one.
I'm right there with you, man. Dolphins, they're clicking on all cylinders, man. They look good. Moving on, Falcons going over to Jacksonville, man. Jags -3. They don't look that great.
I think it's in London.
Oh, it's in London. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, our prep work was terrible.
So they're taking their. I mean, the Jags have looked terrible.
Well, they're going to be terrible over there too.
Trevor Lawrence has looked terrible to start this year. But the Falcons. Desmond, with Ritter at quarterback, I think he got sacked 8 times against the Lions last week. He doesn't really like. I'm not worried about Desmond Ritter throwing the ball on me, like not at all, right? And we saw C.J. Stroud just throw the ball all over the Jags, so I don't think Desmond Ritter will do that. Obviously, I think the Falcons are going to line up and run straight at the Jags with Robinson and. Algier. So the Jags must win this game, right? They can't go to 1-3. Right? You're coming off losing to one of the worst teams in the NFL, the Texans. Not only losing, but just getting destroyed, right? I mean, they had a pooch kick. They scored to make it a 7-point game or 10-point game. The pooch kick, the up man returned it for a touchdown. I mean, a guy probably ran a 5.0 40. Return it for a touchdown on these guys. It was the most pathetic special teams performance I've ever seen. They had a field goal blocked. So it's just been bad all around for the Jags. Trevor Lawrence has been playing poorly. So this has to be the week where the Jags get going, because if the Jags go to 1-3, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble, and they're the division favorite. So they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But I think the Jags. I think they have to get going, right? They have to be.
This is the week that you got to win. You got to put everything together this week, or it's going to be a bad year. But we'll see. Moving on, the old Commanders, baby, heading to the Eagles. Eagles -8.5. I mean, the Commanders don't look half bad this year. Now I don't know if they're not going to beat the Eagles, I wouldn't think, but the Eagles haven't looked that great either. I mean, they look great. They won the game last night versus Tampa Bay, but Sam Howell, man. Sammy Sosa, he's getting it.
think he threw 4 picks against the Bills, a pick 6.
Yeah.
He throws some bad throws. He has some bad turnovers. And the Eagles have not really played well so far, but they're 3-0, right? So
Yep.
at
They've
some
got the
point,
job done.
at some point, the Eagles are gonna play well and they're gonna start creaming teams. I think the Eagles probably blow Washington out in this spot. Howell on the road playing in Philly. It's not going to be a nice crowd for him, and
You think?
he's been making so many mistakes, and it's going to be loud there.
Yep.
The Eagles' defense is pretty good, so that Eagles' defensive line is probably going to eat him alive. So I would definitely lean for the Eagles in this spot at home.
I'm with you. Moving on, LA Rams, Indianapolis Colts. Colts minus 1.5. Is Anthony Richardson? Is he going to be playing this week? Do we know that yet?
He was in concussion protocol, so I'm not really sure, but I don't think I think they have a better chance anyways with Gardner Minshew. Minshew looked great last week. I talked about it before the season started. I said if the Colts wanted to win, they should start Gardner Minshew, right? And we all saw him play very well against the Texans a couple weeks ago. So I definitely like the Colts in this spot. I think the Rams. This will be 2 Central United States road trips right in a row for the Rams. I mean, the Rams might have even stayed, up north for this game. I don't know if they went back to the West Coast, but I think Matthew Stafford last night, he's just getting destroyed. Every snap he's running for his life. He's getting knocked down.
Yep.
Just totally pummeled by the Bengals defense last night. And if Matthew Stafford gets injured, there's nobody to back up. It was supposed to be Stetson Bennett, but he stepped away from the team. But I just don't see the Rams. I mean, they have a great coach, McVay, but I just don't see the playmakers they have. Right, their defense is far from what it was.
It's just pieces, man. And it's a Super Bowl team with a bunch of pieces missing now.
Yeah, a lot of pieces.
Yeah, they just don't look as good. They don't look polished. I kind of like the Colts here, especially with Gardner
defense
passing.
is terrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely would play the Colts or pass in this game. But I think with Minshew or Richardson, I don't think it really matters. I think they probably have a better shot with Minshew to beat them. But I think Richardson, we've seen he's fully capable, right? So
yeah,
he's
like impressed me so far.
He has. I like the Colts either way.
Yep. Moving on, Raiders versus the Chargers. Chargers minus 5.5. The Raiders have not looked very great at all. The offense is dud. I mean, you think getting Jimmy G over there and bringing him in, and this is just going to be a huge switch up, and they just pretty much look exactly like they looked with Derek Carr last year. But what do you think?
I think that we're looking at handicap coach versus handicap coach, right? And McDaniels versus Brandon Staley, two complete morons who both should have cost their team games last week. McDaniels did, but Staley just going for it on 4th and 1.
He got so lucky.
He did 4th and 1 from his own 19-yard line, going for it up by 4 with a minute and a half left. I mean, that just.
What are you doing?
The dumbest. I mean, but he does stuff like that every single year, and every year I say, hey, he should get fired for this, but he doesn't somehow. He's kind of holding Justin Herbert back in that team from meeting their potential, if you ask me. But the Raiders are just seems like they're just you don't know which Jimmy G's going to show up. He's going to throw 3 picks or 3 touchdowns. You don't really know. It depends on if the Chargers get, Eckler back at running back. They lost Mike Williams, I think, for the season with a torn ACL. Keenan Williams had 215 yards receiving against the Vikings. So I think this is a good spot for the Chargers. The Raiders, I think they're starting to make questions about McDaniels. So it's definitely. I mean, it's a rivalry game, so it's going to be tough. But the Chargers are pretty much better at every position except for D line, right? So I would definitely lean towards the Chargers here. But I'm not running to the window to lay 5.5 with Brandon Staley.
Right? Yeah. With anything Brandon Staley's involved with, I mean, I'm not running to the window to get in on that action. But I mean, the Chargers. Yeah, they're just better. They're just better than the Raiders. And like you said, with the kind of internal stuff going on over in Vegas, I mean, what are the questions about McDaniels? Like, how long is he got? Like, what's going to go on? Like, there's going to
like Devontae Adams tweeted that he didn't have time for them to be figuring it out, right? Like he wants to win now. So, I mean,
that's a problem.
Does Devontae Adams like start asking for a trade? Like, you just never know. Like you don't want guys quitting after the third game, right? So,
right. And if they want to, it's a very big problem. But we'll see how they deal with it, I guess.
Exactly. So, I definitely lean the Chargers in that spot. But like I said, I'm probably not eager to bet it.
All right. Well, I mean, that's all the games we got for this week. You got anything else you wanna touch on?
That's about it. We've got the NHL starting in about 13 days. So I just cannot wait for hockey season.
I can't wait either, man.
Talk some shit to these one Boston Bruin fan I hate that blocked me on Twitter.
Block me as well, baby. Can't.
Anyways.
They love us. They hate us.
I can't wait to make some more videos this year. But
it's gonna be awesome, dude. It's gonna be a great NHL season. We got another great weekend of college football and NFL approaching us.
Baseball playoffs. The Braves World Series run starts now.
Yep, starts a week from today, I believe, the playoffs. So a lot of MLB action coming up as well.
It's gonna be a fun time. We got the Team Europe beating the USA in the Ryder Cup this week. So,
I mean, how do they not beat the? I mean, that Europe team is so stacked with players. It's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be fun to watch. Tease off Thursday morning, or is it Friday morning?
Thursday, I think. But I don't. The Ryder Cup, I'm not really into.
I love watching it, dude. I love watching it every 4 years, man. Other than that, that's all we got for today, fellas. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back next week with a little recap and a preview for next weekend. We'll see you.